It's time for the Snap.Build cast, your podcast focused on home builders of all sizes and offering professional views of experts in the home building industry, from financing to final walkthroughs. Thanks for joining us. Let's get building.
Welcome to Snap.Build cast. I'm Michael D'Antonio and I'm with Lee Kaplan, CEO of Snap.Build. Welcome, Lee.
Michael, thank you. Appreciate you having me.
So this is a podcast that we're going to talk about builders, residential home construction, and how your expertise and Snap.Build helps builders. So this show is really about how the housing market is being affected, how lending is being affected, and all the industry expertise that you have around this. But let's start with, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're the CEO of Snap.Build, but you have a really interesting background in business, entrepreneurship, sports coaching. So, you know, all those expertise, all those experiences have lent yourself to becoming the CEO of Snap.Build. But talk a little bit about your background.
Well, I think the first and most important thing to know is that I have an incredible first step. Super quick, still at my age. Yeah, it's been an interesting ride because I really didn't come out of the tech world or the finance world. I came out of the sports world. So I started early 90s with the PGA Tour, and then to Nike Golf from there, which then got me into Integrated Sports International, which became the agency over time. And I was a sports agent. So what that taught me was how to deal with people, deal with a lot of things going on at one time. And of course, that is very much a hustle business. You truly reap what you sow. And so I think I've brought a lot of those factors into this world, and it's been good.
Yeah.
It's been good.
And the builder business and building homes is a hustle business too, right?
Well,
I mean,
it is.
And your experience, you know, I think what led you to where you are today was you were trying to build your own home.
I was. Well, it wasn't my own home. What happened was I had a little break, and you know, one thing about representing football coaches is there is some downtime as they take time off, and I'm not recruiting, so I had some time on my hands, had a little bit of money on the sideline, nothing crazy, and I was like, you know what, it'd be cool to go try to make some money and build a spec house. And I had a buddy that was a builder, and so I kind of approached him out of the blue and said, hey, I'd be willing to do this with you if we can find a lot and build a home. He thought that sounded great, and again, I jumped in not knowing the first thing about building anything. And then just to kind of fast forward almost to the end, it was like as we went through the process, what I realized that it was a very loose process. I would ask him really basic questions, and I always got kind of gray answers. How much is this costing? When will it be done? Really kind of building 101 stuff. And again, that was no indictment on him. That's just how it rolled back then.
And your background, you weren't a builder,
Not at all.
You were just asking basic questions that a potential homeowner
Absolutely
would be asking
I would.
to a builder, right?
But the difference was I wasn't necessarily emotional about it. It wasn't my house. It was just a spec. Now, I was expecting to make X when the house sold, and I ended up making Y. And what I realized as I started then asking more questions was it was just a very loose and very fly by the seat of your pants and kind of gut feel type of business. And I sat back and thought to myself, there literally has to be a better way. I can't imagine that that's how all these homes are being built all over the country. I mean, you had to be very, very trusting. And I've learned over years when it comes to money, while trust is important, things need to be put in place that hold people accountable, and there's a lot of black and white to it.
Right.
And it just hit me that there just has to be something more. And so from that point, we got paid. It was great. It wasn't a bad experience. I learned a ton. And then I met a gentleman through my buddy, the builder, who was kind of lending his own money to builders to start to build, all vertical construction. But it was very old school on spreadsheets, and again, just kind of trusting that the things were getting built and his money was getting dispersed. It was one of those deals where you hope they're paying the bills. And so I basically went to him and said, what I'm telling you, the same story, and said, "What if?" And I said, "I think technology would really help you." And that was literally the kind of the birth of what is now Snap.Build. And this was 6-7 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And a lot of industries, technology is not always the answer, but in an industry where maybe things are antiquated and things that can be done differently and quicker and faster, not only for the person building the stuff or making the stuff in any industry, but also the end user, right? The value to the end user is that much greater because technology is involved.
It is. And honestly, it was so loose that I felt like anything put in place was going to be an enhancement or a betterment to the system because it was just so fly by the seat of your pants.
And there was no transparency because you were basing progress and
it was
the questions based on, where are we in this process, right?
And it was simple stuff. Like, and again, it wasn't necessarily the builder's fault. I said, "Hey, how much does it cost to paint the house?" It's going to cost us $7,000. And then when I looked at the invoice after it was already paid, I realized he actually paid him $9,500. And I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Well, he needed more material. He needed this. He needed that." And I'm like, "Well, there's $2,500 that was supposed to be ours."
Correct.
And now we gave it to the painter as an example, and that just. As an investor, which is how I looked at it then, that didn't work for me.
Right.
And it bothered me.
Right.
And I was like, this just can't be the way. And so that kind of really got me going. And I've always been entrepreneurial. I've done a lot of stuff on my own. And so that's what kind of got me going down this road. And it's funny. It's almost a blur. Now I look back, I'm like, it's really crazy how I'm even in this business. But I've taken a lot of the concepts and really, I think it was actually good that I wasn't in the building space. To be completely honest with you, I saw it from a different set of eyes.
Right.
Like, to me, it was just all like common sense stuff. Like, well, this doesn't make any sense to do it this way.
Right. And you had no skin in the industry game of being brought up in from a builder perspective or in the housing.
Knew nothing about it.
Right.
Zero.
And I think
never built a house.
This is where kind of disruption happens in industries where. To your point, you're asking the right questions and people are saying, yeah, I've always thought, you're right. I've always thought there should be a better way to do it. Let's go do it the better way.
Well,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was funny because as I'm learning all this stuff and talking to my friend who was the builder, I'm like, well, how does this normally work? He goes, well, normally I get a line from the bank for, $5 million credit line and they give me a checkbook. And as the bills need paid, I write the checks. And of course, I was like, well, how does the bank know you're actually paying the people you're supposed to pay? Oh, well, no, they know.
Right.
Oh, they do? Okay, right. Well, so I took a lot of that info and probably went to the very extreme the other way. And to me, it was all about, how do you create any kind of accountability, transparency, security, all the things that I think we put into this company.
Yep.
But that's literally, necessity is the mother of invention.
Yep.
This is a living example of how that works.
And you have talked to me off the podcast before about money is trust, right? When you're dealing with money, there is inherently a trust factor.
Well, they won't give you the money if they don't trust you.
Right.
But trust isn't enough.
Right.
And if banks are in the business of trust, I can tell you that's a bad business to be in. And that's how I've always looked at it. Like, I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to let the system work. And let's make sure that everything you need to see has everybody that needs to be accountable.
Awesome.
So let's get the trust piece out of it. Although no one understands relationships better than me as being a sports agent. Like, if they don't trust you, you're not getting them.
You're not getting them.
And then I would say that about a bank. Like, you're not going to give me a line of credit if you think I'm not trustworthy.
Right.
But that is literally 0.00001% of the relationship that we're talking about. Because at the end of the day, the relationship is as good as the money is safe. Period.
Yep.
So you boil it all down, that is the deal. And as I'm going out and trying to find institutional money and raising, hundreds of millions of dollars, it's like, man, you better be able to show them to the penny where everything is every day. Every day.
So this was a great little chat. The podcast is going to be about, like I talked about, market factors. We're going to talk about industry. We're going to talk about best practices in building. It's really about getting the word out around what's really happening in the residential
Yep.
construction area. So Lee, thanks so much, and we will talk again soon.
Michael, you're welcome, and I appreciate your cheery demeanor considering the Eagles lost Thursday. So,
I know
that killed you. So,
I am a Philly guy,
appreciate-
so I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.